Hello, Frog fans. Welcome into the Frogs Insider postgame show after a 23-17 victory for the Horned Frogs in Morgantown over West Virginia. Jamie Plunkett here with Jeremy Clark, Steven Johnson, and Melissa Triebwasser ready to break down everything from this football game. Guys, interesting football game tonight. It's felt like a little bit of a lethargical game for the Horned Frogs. Didn't really get through. Definitely didn't get close to covering the 16.5 point spread. Didn't really have the perfect execution night on offense. The secondary still really struggled at times. We're going to get into all of that, but I want to start here, Steven, because you were there in Morgantown. You talked to Sonny post game. What was his? You talked about it a little bit before we went live, but just what was his kind of demeanor following this close win for the Horned Frogs?
Well, Sonny, I'm sure the picture's going to go viral maybe here in a couple minutes or so. Sonny looked exhausted to me. West Virginia had a podium set up for players to stand at. Sonny wanted to sit down. He was a little hoarse, like he had been yelling a lot tonight. So obviously, I think he was happy. I would say he was relieved they got the win, just because with the way it looked in that final 5 minutes, it looked like we could have easily been looking at here as I think that would have changed a lot of things. They found a way to lose that game for everybody across the board. So I think Sonny realized how big it was for the fact that they closed the game off. And I think they need this bye week. They're banged up. They look like they were a bit tired today, both from the coaching staff and the players. So, look, we know Morgantown is a wacky place to play. Bad things happen. The greatest TCU teams have struggled here. So it's not really a surprise that TCU didn't look dominant. But I think Sonny was a bit relieved knowing that they escaped what would have been, I think, a terrible loss. It would have been really hard for them to recover from.
Look, I hear what you're saying about the challenges that TCU has faced in Morgantown, and I think it's perfectly acceptable for Sonny to be relieved with the win tonight. Here are the other scores of West Virginia's games in the Big 12 this year. First, they lost to Kansas 41-10. In Kansas, they lost at home to Utah 48-14. They lost on the road to BYU, I believe it was 38-24. And then they lost at home last week to Central Florida 45-13. So this is a West Virginia team that had not had a game any closer than 14 points coming into tonight in league play. TCU gets out with a 6-point win. Jeremy, when we look at this game from an offensive perspective, TCU's first 3 possessions start in plus territory on West Virginia's side of the field. They come away with 3 points in the first 2, and then finally come away with a touchdown later in the first half. But what was it that you saw from this offense, especially in the first half, that maybe led to another slow start for the Frogs?
Man, I'll just come out and say it. It just looked very uninspiring to me. It looked like there was no emotion. Steven, you were there. You probably saw it better on the sideline, but the team just didn't look like it had any energy. They were just going with the motions, kind of playing down to West Virginia's defense a little bit. Obviously, when you start in plus territory like that, starting deep in West Virginia territory, you only come away with 3 points in your first 3 drives. Then you finally get on the board. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm just thinking, man, West Virginia is one of the worst defenses in the Big 12 and the nation. And I'm trying to figure out, how can an offense that put up 42 points last week against Baylor be struggling so early? They did score 10 points in the first quarter, which I think is the first time they've scored in the first quarter in 3 games. So you're kind of like thinking, okay, they're on the right track, but man, I just can't get this out of my head. Just how they were just kind of just going through the motions. I don't think it was really anything West Virginia was doing differently. I think it was just a lot of execution and lack of emotion from TCU, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I see some of the people in the comments talking about be happy with the win. And, yeah, I mean, it's a win, and a win is better than a loss. No argument from me there. But at the end of the day, when you look at a team that's on its 4th-string quarterback, I believe it's 4th-string running back, and was banged up against the road, those are the opportunities to go and prove you can win games on the road. Like, yeah, Morgantown is a tough environment, but this is not your brother, sister, uncle's, father's West Virginia team. This is a team that is at the dregs of its season and hanging on for dear life with the injuries that they've dealt with. am I glad TCU won? Certainly, but it's really hard for me, I guess, to look at any individual game in a vacuum. I'm looking at the totality of what this season is and what this team's expectations were and what they're capable of doing. And the way that they play on the road is incredibly concerning when you look ahead to what they have remaining. You've got 2 really difficult road games in the month of November. BYU, stormed back against Iowa State and looks really, really good. Cincinnati is clearly no pushover. And Houston is clearly no pushover. And they've got, last I saw, they have Arizona in control tonight. And then you've got 2 games against teams at home that are not going to fold over and die for you either. And so I think that when you look at just individual results and you say win by 1, like, sure, absolutely. Better to win than lose. The Big 12 there's a lot of parity, et cetera, et cetera. But this was a team that we came into this season believing that the expectation was to be playing for a shot at Arlington. And when you see what they do against literally the very bottom of this league and the way that they struggled against a 4-string cornerback, you just have to say at this point in the season, is that enough? Does that reach the standard that Sonny Dykes and this program has set for itself? Or is it okay that we look at this and go, man, like, you got away with one tonight? Sure, but we said that last week. You got away with one against Baylor. We've said that multiple times this season. And at some point, I want to see this team look like the team that we've expected it to be and be able to show that they are a team that can win games against good teams and can win games on the road against better opponents than what they saw tonight.
Stephen, what about you?
Well, I think everybody's making great points, and it's just so funny that I think if you told most TCU fans at the beginning of the season that TCU would be sitting here entering this last bye week 6-2, most of them would take it. But then, of course, the season unfolds the way it unfolds, and then you blow a 17-point lead on the road at Arizona State. You lose. I know Kansas State is starting to play better. You really get, you got your asses kicked by Kansas State because you had too many turnovers, and now you won this game, you won this game historically. Morgantown's giving everybody trouble, but the fact that they almost gave that game away twice with the onside kick and the fumble by Eric. So shout out to Major Everhart for making that game change and play. Because me, honestly, it looked like the quarterback Scotty Fox was gaining some confidence in that fourth quarter. I think if West Virginia would have recovered that fumble, I think TCU would have lost the game. So I think every point you guys are making is correct, and I think we might just be at the point where I don't think any of us wants to say it. I just don't think this team is good enough, whether it's health, execution, schematically, whatever it is. I don't think this team is good enough to make it to the Big 12 championship. I'm watching BYU. I will sleep on BYU. They're a really good team. Cincinnati has a lot of juice. We know Texas Tech, when they're healthy, they're probably at least a juggernaut in this conference. So when I watch those teams, I see just a huge difference between what I'm seeing at TCU, both in just terms of physicality across the board. TCU has some playmakers, Jamel Johnson, Bud Clark, Eric McAllister. But overall, man, I just think there's a gap between them and the kind of the cream of the crop of the Big 12 now.
It really does seem that way. I mean, you talk about BYU, they come back from down multiple scores against Iowa State and Ames today. We haven't seen TCU play like that in Ames for the last 10 years in the league. We haven't seen TCU be as physical in the trenches as this Texas Tech team is this year, or Arizona State, who won the league last year, or in the past, Kansas State with the physicality in the trenches there. And for TCU, obviously, you mentioned, Melissa, West Virginia being banged up. The Frogs are a little bit banged up as well. Lost Cade Bennett to an injury. He didn't play today. So you start Remington Strickland at right guard. Colton Deary goes down. Looks like he was really banged up and really hurting in that second quarter. Strickland has to move to center. You bring in Cooper Powers at right guard. The offensive line didn't necessarily play poorly today. I thought that they held their own, especially considering the injuries, but there was still not that level of physicality that you were hoping for against a team that should have been as overmatched as West Virginia should have been, because the running lanes really weren't there. Outside of Trent Battle's 46-yard run, the Frogs struggled to get stuff going on the ground until that final drive where they really did start to lean on West Virginia with the Barnes and Battle back and forth there. But the reality is the offense was wildly inconsistent. The offensive line is pretty banged up, and now you're looking at 4 defensive fronts in November that are significantly better than most of what you've seen so far this year. So I do think that there is reason for concern as you head into the bye week. Obviously, you hope TCU gets healthy, but a week of rest can only do so much, especially when you start talking about scheme and run blocking and those sorts of things. Josh Hoover took a big hit, though, in the first quarter of this game. A lot of Frog fans wanted that to be called a targeting. It was not called targeting, even though there was helmet-to-helmet contact. Did it appear to y'all like Josh was a different quarterback after that hit? Like maybe he wasn't seeing the field well. Maybe he was trying to get the ball out a little bit too quickly. Steven, let's start with you.
Well, Sonny said it himself. He didn't think Josh was ever the same after that hit. And it kind of just felt like he was just – look, we've talked about how Josh kind of struggles on the road compared to what he does in Amon Carter Stadium. But he did look a little bit off. There were times, I think, on some of those touchdown attempts to Eric McAllister, he had other guys open. I want to say Major popped open on the seam route, wide open. Josh Denver looked his way, and you could kind of see he was just really zero in on either Eric or just Jordan. So it was a big hit. I don't think Josh is used to taking those kind of hits just because he just doesn't run the ball a lot. So I think that definitely played some factor into maybe his performance, but I do think it might be just kind of overall, just an overall trend of it just might be, we just might not see the Josh we see in Fort Worth on the road, especially when they got to go to BYU and Houston. So this just might be what we see of him on the road. But most importantly, he didn't have a turnover. He had 6 on the road in the previous games against North Carolina, Arizona State, and Kansas State. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say this has been better than he's looked on the road this season, but this is still far below his standards. And I think the hit was a factor, but I still think overall you still want to see a little bit more from your quarterback on the road. So I guess it's a step in the positive direction, but they're going to need a lot more from him at BYU and at Houston.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I thought it affected him. I thought there was a play, I think it was in the second quarter, where he had Everhart on the seam and he underthrew him and it ended up getting a pass interference call. But I think Josh Hoover typically makes that throw. He's a very good down the field passer. And luckily they got an interference on that play. And so TCU continued to drive. I think they went on to maybe score that drive. I think it was a big play, but yeah, there was things where we kind of seen it's kind of hard to decipher because Josh, like Steven says, has difficulties playing on the road. He didn't turn the ball over, which is so crazy because they've scored more points with more turnovers in games this year, and somehow they only managed to score 23 tonight. But I think there was obviously some high passes, a couple high passes to Eric that weren't hauled in. I thought Eric probably should have hauled in one of those touchdown passes when I text you, when I thought, hey, that kind of looked like a touchdown, but I felt like Eric should have helped him out on that. Could have came down with the catch. Would have been a tough catch, but he could have came down with it. But I would agree that I think that hit, which to me, I can't decipher rules, guys. I need to have a class. I need to figure out all these Big 12 rules because it dang sure looked like targeting to me. The guys were saying, well, he gave up his body and therefore he's not in position to be targeted. You guys explain that to me. I don't understand. I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight trying to figure out Big 12 rules and how these officials get through every week with making these calls. But back to Josh, yes, I do think it affected him.
I mean, Jeremy, don't waste your time taking a class because the rules it doesn't matter what you know. They're never what you think they are anyways. So with the Big 12 officials, that's one thing you can be sure of. Yeah, I mean, I have a really hard time commenting on this because if I say that I think it impacted Josh, then I say that there is some culpability of the coaching staff of not taking him out. Was he properly evaluated? What happened on the sideline? I have no idea. I wasn't there. And that to me would be as equally as concerning as if it did impact his play. And when you look at long term, especially heading into the bye week, you don't want to see your quarterback take a hit like that, not play to his full capability and go, shoot, maybe he should have been evaluated. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. So I'm not making any accusations whatsoever. I'm just saying that to me is a concern. But the second part of it is it like I think what Steven was saying, it is hard to tell if it was related to that hit or if it's just kind of indicative of what we've seen on the road. I thought that Josh got real jumpy after taking a couple hard hits at Kansas State. Can't say that I blame him. That pocket was collapsing. West Virginia had a lot of success with just 4, especially early on in the game. And then once you lose Deary, things obviously went a little bit downhill. That O-line is absolutely banged up, 100%. I think that they gutted it out tonight and didn't play poorly, but Josh certainly wasn't as comfortable in the pocket as we've seen him in other games this season. And I'm sure part of that was due to the hit, part of that was due to the injuries, and part of that is just due to what we've seen this season on the road. So if it impacted him, then I don't think it was handled well, right? If it didn't impact him, then we can say, well, this is part of a bigger issue that we've seen with his performance on the road. But I do think there were mitigating factors tonight that haven't necessarily been in every other game this season.
I think that's fair. We do have a comment here from Patton Maynard saying that the fact that we're even talking about a no-call flag is the real issue. West Virginia is tied for worst team in the league. It should never be close enough for us to be talking about a flag. And I think that there is something to that to an extent. TCU definitely did not play their best game today.
That's a killer suit, though, Patton. I have to say that is a great looking suit.
Well-dressed man in the profile photo there. I will say this though about TCU's offense tonight. They did their best to get their best players the football. 18 targets for Eric McAllister. He finished with 9 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown. Jeremy, you already kind of said it. There were 2 plays in the end zone for McAllister there that looked like they could have been called touchdowns. One of them was actually called a touchdown on the field before officials conferred and ruled it incomplete on his little toe tap spinning catch. But there have been some instances this season with McAllister not reeling in passes in the end zone. He had the catch that turned into an interception against SMU. Another play where he toe tapped and didn't get the call against SMU. Really interesting to me that a guy like McAllister, who flashes incredibly strong hands pretty much everywhere else on the field, has started to develop this trend in the end zone of not being able to hold on to the football.
Yeah, it's pretty eye-opening because I thought the one where it was kind of questionable where it looked like it was called a touchdown the first time and overruled. I thought that was a good catch. I thought the one where the guy stripped the ball out when he was coming down out of the end zone, I thought that should have been a catch. I think Eric needs to be able to pull that ball into his chest a little bit faster. I think obviously he's strong. He's a big play receiver. But you're right, man. He is making some plays right now that are kind of unlike Eric McAllister plays. He needs to step up a little bit bigger way. He had 18 targets, like you said, and I'm going to just say it. I think this offense is really missing Joseph Manjack. I think they're missing Ed Small. I think those 2 guys are not the flashy guys, not the guys that are going to beat you downfield, but they get open. They get open, and most of the time they catch the football. So I think them targeting Eric so much and Josh and Jordan Dwyer were way off tonight. They tried to connect. I think Josh had 7 or 8 targets toward Jordan, but he only came down with 3 catches. So I think overall the offense, along with the offensive line, missing some key guys. I think they need Joseph Manjack back. I think they need Ed Small back, and this is a great time. Not defending these guys for 23 points against West Virginia, but I do think this bye week's coming at the right time, and maybe they get Eric McAllister in there doing some heavy lift and making those hands even stronger than what they are, so he can come down. He should have 10 or 11 touchdown catches already this year.
Yeah, Eric has so much talent and so much ability, and he has first-round measurables and skill sets, but those are the plays that separate really good receivers from elite ones. And I think at this point in his career, you'd like to see him finish those plays, right? Like, I think that's a completely fair thing to see. We see him do so many good things, and that's like the one, like, just kind of like little thing dangling out there that I think is going to be something that professional scouts and evaluators look at, right? Because it only gets harder at the next level. So I think I would have liked to have seen at least the one where that ball got stripped out. To me, that's a play he's got to make. He's got to finish. There's just no excuse for that one. And if you're going to have to force feed him the ball 18 times a game, then you're going to expect him to, in those moments, to make those plays. And Jeremy, I agree with you. I think not having a reliable option in the slot has hurt this offense. But I also think something we've seen all year, and I think we all thought that Jacoby Hayes could be that guy. They just don't have elite speed on the outside. They don't really have someone that can take the top off the defense and make those safeties play honestly. And when you are down to really just playing 2 receivers, it's so much easier for the defense to key and cue on those guys in passing situations. And so I think that we thought that was going to be a real strength. We knew that there would be a drop off after having 3 guys that are, in professional football right now. But I think I've been a little disappointed that the depth hasn't really risen to the occasion at this point in the season that we kind of hoped and expected it would.
Steven, I want to pivot to you for a second to talk about this, because we saw Kavorian Barnes start this game for TCU, and then we didn't see him again until late in the third quarter of this football game. Trent Battle finishes as the leading rusher with 19 carries for 89 yards and a score. Was there any mention of Barnes' absence between his first possession and that late in the third quarter, or did Sonny kind of glaze over that?
Kind of glazed over. He said like we were without our starting running back, but obviously KB played in the first quarter and really was kind of the lead back in the second half. So I'm not really sure what happened during that time frame, but I think Trent Battle probably deserves a shout out. He had a career high 89 yards. I think he's probably, as with all the money and all the stuff going around college sports, I think Trent Battle is probably the pure example of what it means to be a student athlete. Could have easily left, went somewhere smaller. He was here. He played in the national title game, played in the Big 12 title game. He could have easily went anywhere he wanted to and got, 100, 200 carries, but he wanted to stay at TCU, said it was a big part of the community. And not only did he have a career high in rushing yard, he was the one that recovered that onside kicking, like I told y'all. If West Virginia found a way to get that ball back with onside or that fumble by McAllister, I think they were going to win the football game. So I think Trent Battle really stepped up when they needed him to, as he's kind of done his entire career, whether it's on special teams, whether he's the third or the fourth back, he's been willing to do whatever this program needs. So I think it was really nice. As bad as TCU played today, I thought that was a real positive to see Trent Battle kind of continue to have this breakout season as a senior.
Fully agree with you there. Love to see the success that he's having in his now 5th year at TCU. Came into the program as a quarterback, isn't that right, Jeremy? And has been a very successful running back in spot situations for the Frogs.
Oh yeah, yep. 3-star quarterback, 3-star athlete out of Alabama.
I believe that's right. Yeah, incredible. Let's before we pivot to the defense, because I thought they had a pretty good night. Sans a couple moments there in the secondary. Let's talk about Nate McCashland, because I think he deserves some shine on the postgame show. 3 for 3 on field goals of the night. He hit a 22-yarder, a 35-yarder, and a 41-yarder, which was his career long. He had really good kickoffs, mostly touchbacks. Overall, very good night for TCU's redshirt freshman kicker, who was kind of thrust into a situation, and it looks like the coaching staff is starting to trust him a little bit more now. And that was huge tonight on a night where the offense struggled to gain yards consistently and to consistently get into the red zone. The fact that TCU found a little bit of a kicking game, frankly, is one of the big reasons why they won this football game tonight.
I was terrified coming into this game about that situation, thinking if TCU needed to get a good momentum kick, and McCashland absolutely stepped up. I think his confidence, hopefully he gained a lot of confidence from his performance, especially in a game where he was legitimately the difference between a win and a loss for TCU. You imagine and assume you're going to be probably some close games over the final month of the season. And so knowing you've got a guy that at least when you get inside 40 yards, you feel a little bit more confident about, I think that's huge for him, and was happy to see him have some success. And I mean, honestly, TCU fans should be incredibly thankful for him, because without his performance and him hitting 3 of 3, there's a chance that this is a very different discussion right now.
I think it's also big for TCU because they're going to go on the road here in some tough environments, and with the way this offense is look, they're going to need to knock down some field goals. So it's probably some longer field goals. So I think I'm still not ready to say this is back being a strength or isn't still a weakness for TCU, but I think the fact that McCashland hit 3 of them was the difference, like Melissa said. To honestly, him, Trent, and Caleb Elarms, those were my 3 MVPs of the night. So I think shout out to McCashland, man. He's kind of had a rough couple of weeks, not having a lot of trust. Going back to last week against Baylor when they could have kicked the field goal. Was that Baylor or was that Colorado? Where they could have kicked the field goal, but instead I think they threw a touchdown pass. So
that was
whatever.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. So just go from the fact of not having the coaching staff's trust in that moment to now you're relied on to even hit that 40-plus yard field goal. I think it's a testament to the work he's put in, and I think at the very least, whether Limmerman comes back or not, TCU I think develops some more confidence in him and being able to hit those long field goals.
Steven, I think it was you the last week or the week before you asked Sonny about Kyle Limmerman. Someone did, and Sonny kind of started talking about the field goal game. He was feeling more confident, feeling a little bit of trust, and we kind of looked at each other like, what's he talking about? But it was good to see Nate go out there tonight, because I've seen him in those situations where 41-yard field goals do not sometimes get made in practice. They're going wide left, they're going wide right. He has a little bit of distance. He could probably hit from 46 maybe to 50. Absolute tops is 50 probably. but I would say that this was a huge night for his confidence, maybe for the coaching staff's confidence too, to if they get within those situations where, like we saw against Colorado a few weeks ago, they wouldn't kick the field goal. Now they go out there and have a little bit more trust. If they have a 35 to 40-yard field goal, they're going to trust him to come in. And apparently it was, frigid up there, 40 degrees. Maybe this is why the TCU players were playing bad, but at least when you go up to BYU in a few weeks that you're going to probably be in a cold situation, you could trust Nate to go out there and get you a field goal if you need to.
Yeah, notoriously warm Provo, Utah.
In November.
Good preparation for the Frogs, I guess, on that front. This evening, let's move to the defense, and Steven, you already mentioned him as one of your kind of MVPs of the game. Caleb Elarms with 16 tackles, including a tackle and a half for loss and a sack. He was big tonight. I think that's 31 tackles in TCU's last 2 football games for Caleb, which is just insane to me. He's the first Horned Frog since at least 1995 to have 15 tackles or more in back-to-back football games. So incredible performance from him. He's flying all around tonight, and he was the catalyst for this defense that really shut West Virginia down for the most part in late down situations. The Mountaineers tonight were just 5 of 21 on 3rd and 4th downs. That's such a stark difference from where this defense was in the first few weeks of the season, and a lot of it has to do with Caleb Elarms.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been, I can't even say he's been a revelation, because I think we all kind of expected him to be maybe one of the better linebackers in the Big 12, but I know the Rodriguez kid at Texas Tech is pretty good. I'm sure BYU has a really good linebacker. K-State does as well. But I think he's easily been one of the best linebackers, not only in the Big 12, but in the country. I think he's the prototypical linebacker you want now when you're facing all these spread offenses. You can put him against the pass. You can let him rush the pass. Or you can use him as a spy. He's obviously great attacking when his run fits and whatnot. And I just think his overall approach, me and Jeremy talked to Andy Avalos early this week. Caleb kind of has a pro mentality with how he approaches the game. He told us after the game today was, if I have a good game, I'm doing the exact same thing over next. I'm wearing the same things at practice. I'm eating the same things. I'm listening to the same music. So, it sounds a little mundane. It's not sexy, but all those things you do leading up into the week allow Caleb to have these big games. So I think he's a guy I think is contending for All-American status, certainly all Big 12. And with a defense that has guys like Bud Clark and Jamel Johnson, I think he's easily been the best player this year.
I think if TCU was sitting at 8-0 right now and they were more known for their defense nationally, because coming into this game, I think they were in the 80s in total defense, 70s or 80s. I don't have the stat in front of me. But I feel like if TCU was regarded as kind of one of the better defenses in the nation, you'd probably be hearing Caleb's name being brought up as the best linebacker in the nation. I think TCU's overall output on defense is kind of limiting his notoriety, but I agree with you, Steven. I really truly feel you look at Rodriguez at Texas Tech, BYU has some guys, K-State has some guys, but I think if you just look at the body of work, Caleb Elarms to me is the best linebacker in the Big 12. The way he's making plays, flying around the football, 31 tackles in the last 2 weeks. I mean, the production doesn't lie. And I just keep going back to last week when they won that game against Baylor. That dude was up at the podium acting like they lost the game. And when you have a guy like that is reacting that way to a win, you have a great leader. You know that he sees the flaws that they got to improve on. And this guy's going to put in the work each week. He's not missing tackles. He's where the ball is every play. He's got such a tremendous nose for the football this year. It's kind of surprising he didn't get to play more last year. I'm looking back going, what in the heck was happening last year where this guy wasn't on the field more? He's obviously proven to everyone that he should have been playing more, and thank goodness he's playing defense the way he is this year for TCU, because he is one of those bright spots on defense, like Steven mentioned, along with Jamel and Bud. But yeah, I would stand on the soapbox all day long and say Caleb's one of the best linebackers in the nation.
I wish TCU had more guys with his fire, his accountability. I mean, we've seen him get in guys' faces on the field. We've seen, like you mentioned, the press conference last week, Jeremy. Like, that to me was so impressive. And I think that's the kind of attitude you need to be great, and I think that's why he's having the season that he has. I mean, my favorite play of the game might well be that when he broke back in, he basically was hugging Scotty Fox like the minute that he had the fake handoff and pulled it back, and there was Caleb, just had him wrapped up in a big bear hug because he was so quick to get to the backfield. He's done a lot of impressive things, but he's been such a catalyst, not just in his play on the field, but as a leader on a defense that, like we've all have mentioned, I mean, was pretty good tonight outside of a couple, correctable errors.
He's part of a trend for TCU this year, and I think this is one of the under talked about stories of the year. I guess that's maybe the four of us as four of the people covering this team can start talking about it more. But the transformation in year 2 of Andy Avalos' defense against the run specifically. Last year, that was an absolute weakness for this ball club. This year, it's been transformed with Caleb and with Ansel Dinboo in the front of that defensive front. They held West Virginia to 41 rushing yards tonight and just 1.3 yards per carry. And that was a big reason why they were so successful in late down situations, because West Virginia had a lot of 3rd and 3, 4th and 1 spots where they tried to run the football and just couldn't get it done against this defensive front. So that's a big shift in the right direction for this TCU defense. Now, the secondary, still problematic in a lot of different ways. You had a freshman making his second career start tonight in Fox for West Virginia. He completes 68% of his passes for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns. The corners got beat quite a bit. The safeties, again, were a little bit out of position. It's a situation that has not really improved as opposed to the running defense, which has improved. And at some point in these last 4 games in November, that's probably going to cause a pretty big issue for TCU if the secondary can't lock it down in coverage.
I need to try to find this. I was trying to look it up during the game because I think they had, 2 or 3 more today, but they got to lead the nation in defensive pass interferences. I looked it up. I believe TCU's like 99th in total penalties. I feel confident most of those are defensive holding / DPIs. For whatever reason, the safeties are great ball hawks, well, at least Bud and Jamel have been. But for whatever reason, these cornerbacks, whenever the ball's in the air, man, they really struggle to get their head around, man. So even if you just kind of chunk up a ball and it's underthrown, it's a 50-50 chance you're going to get a flag, if not a completion, man. So, and it's been the entirety of the cornerback room. Avery Helms been beat some. Javon McIver, I think, gave up 2 straight long passes today. Channing Canada's taking this lump. So I think when Gil Jackson, the true freshman, is playing early in the first half, that lets you know they're trying to test out more people, get more bodies out there. And right now, early in the year, I would say, well, TCU, they've been leading a lot in these games. So that's why, teams are passing more. I think at this point of season, 8 games in, I think Glover is okay. I think he's solid. But I think right now the cornerback room, it's been, forget a disappointment. This is now a weakness for TCU. And I think when you got some of these quarterbacks you're going to be playing these next 4 games, I know you did a great job against Baylor. Some of these quarterbacks, you're going to be playing a lot better quarterbacks, a lot better receivers in these coming weeks, man. So, and TCU can't afford to give up these big plays, whether they're giving up completions or whether they're giving up penalties. So it's just such a stark contrast from honestly what we've been used to seeing. Trey Tomlinson, Josh Newton, even Scud James, these are guys, in my opinion, that really excelled at kind of like the point of the catch. Like when the ball's in the air, they really thrive in those moments of their physicality and some of their ball skills. They don't have that this year. Guys aren't getting their head around. They're giving up penalties. They're giving up big plays. And I think, like Jeremy kind of pointed out with Caleb Elarms, or you could make the case the cornerback room might be the reason he's not getting more attention nationally, because they're so good against the run. But that passing defense, man, if Bud or Jamel aren't forcing INTs, quarterbacks have been feasted, man. And I don't think anymore it's just simply that TCU's had the lead. I think the cornerback room has been a bit disappointment, and they got to lock in for these last 4 games.
The cornerback room, I'll just say it's the worst part of this team. Excuse me. If you look at what they've done each week, TCU entered this game allowing 251 passing yards a game, and you can argue that most of those big plays are coming against the cornerbacks. We saw it last week against Baylor, and it's not just one particular person. It's the whole room, like you said, Stephen. Every single one of those players, even down to Vernon, although he's made the least amount of mistakes, every single one of those guys have been beaten. Even when you brought in Gil Jackson tonight, he gets a pass interference call. Last week against Baylor, Devondre McGee comes in late in the game. He gets beaten that late 4th quarter touchdown. So there is not one cornerback that I could sit back and say, man, I feel comfortable with that guy covering a deep pass, because I honestly don't. I honestly see this as the true weakness of the team. And if they can't improve, I'm going to keep this very short. I'm going to say very simple. If they can't improve their play at cornerback, there is no chance in heck that they're going to win any of these last 4 games they have. And let's not even talk about the making it to the Big 12 title game. Let's just talk about getting a W, because you're right, Stephen. They face some really talented quarterbacks. They face some talented receivers coming up. They're trying everything they can to get pressure. They're trying everything they can to get to the quarterback. Linebackers are making plays. Defensive line's making plays. They shut down a team today that averaged 195 yards on the ground coming into the game. So when you look at the body of work, you're playing against a quarterback making his second career start, and you give up 301 passing yards. There is no one else in this program to point your finger at. We're going to get in trouble for pointing fingers, but you got to look at that room and say, this is what happened. There is no other group that is allowing big plays to happen like the cornerback room, whether it's long completions, whether it's pass interference calls, whether it's holding. You've got to hold someone accountable for the production that you're getting on that side of the ball. And tonight, the secondary, more particularly the cornerback room, failed this defense.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I was going to say, ditto. Jeremy, as the kids would say, clock it. That's what you
Clock
did.
it.
Clock
Listen, I think
Steven's so disappointed in me.
it's fine.
Hey, how many plays they give up deep tonight? 6, 7?
With the DPIs? Oh, man. I didn't even realize.
Fell into it.
I'm clipping this for my students on Monday. They're gonna love
that's
it.
brutal. Listen, Steven, I think you got to something, and I want to expound on it just for a second, because we all looked at this cornerback room this fall and thought that it would be pretty solid. We felt like there was good depth at that position with Helm and Vernon coming back off those ACL injuries. But for me, I think the larger disappointment with this position group is the legacy of great cornerback play that TCU has had over the last decade. You mentioned Scud and Trey and Newton, but going back to all the way back to Jason Verrett back in the 14-15 years, and all the guys that have come since then, cornerback has been a strength of this defense pretty much for the last 15 years running. And to see it have kind of caved in on itself this year so dramatically is really shocking. Because they've always recruited well at this position. They've always developed really well at this position. It's not like this is a particularly young group of guys either. Yes, they were a little banged up last year, but I think for me, this is kind of one of the more shocking developments of the season is just the inability to cover, especially in man situations down the sidelines for these cornerbacks. And like you guys all said, it has already cost TCU a little bit this year, especially if you look back at those Arizona State and Kansas State losses. And with these 4 teams coming up that are all probably going to be ranked in the top 25 when you play them, it's not getting any easier as you close out in November.
I can tell you the biggest indictment on the cornerback room. I was walking back up from the press conference. I'm hearing the West Virginia, I think the radio or the press conference. They're talking about Scotty Fox, and I think they're talking about the TCU cornerback room. They said, and I quote, West Virginia knew if their receivers got past TCU's face, like they were getting past them, and they could throw those long passes. So if a team like West Virginia on their 4th-string quarterback with receivers none of us have heard of have that type of confidence going up against TCU's cornerbacks, I think it's just pretty telling, man. I think the scouting report is out. We can attack these guys. If we don't complete the pass, we're probably going to get a penalty. So just expect to see a lot of deep vertical pass. And I think it was frustrating watching how they were playing off coverage and kind of giving up some of those short passes, but they had to, because if they press, if they play up and try to play like man to man, they haven't shown that they can keep up with these receivers, even from a team like West Virginia.
And I'll say this, Jamie, when we're out at practice, Julius Lewis, another former cornerback that was pretty good in a TCU uniform, and Juice Brown, they're coaching those cornerbacks like you wouldn't believe. They're on them. It's not like a coaching thing where TCU's cornerback room is not getting good coaching. They're getting good coaching. They're not executing. They're not finding the ball. They're not turning their hips. They're grabbing, they're holding. It's just a lot of things. And they've tried you can't blame the coaches for trying because they've thrown everything out but
Yeah.
the kitchen sink to see who in the world can we rely on right now in the secondary. And it's just not working out. I think it's a room that they have to come together. They have to have a coming to Jesus talk and talk about it amongst themselves and figure out what the heck they're doing wrong, lean on each other, help each other out. But right now, man, I can't look at this defense, and especially after a game like tonight where you figure the offense will score 40 something points, it'll be okay. But when you get in close games like this and you can't rely on your cornerback room, how else are you going to expect a team to win? You just can't. I can't look into the future and think, oh man, yeah, I can trust those guys right now because I can't. And I don't think anyone really can. I know probably none of us four can trust them. And I'm sure the fans have a great thread going on Horned Frog Blitz or Twitter or anywhere else talking about, the secondary tonight.
Tree, you got anything?
I think it's been said very well in that regard. Yeah.
Listen, I do remember after a game, I believe it was after the Abilene Christian game, Jeremy, you came back in from practice one day and said that Juice was out there with his cleats on, trying to run some coverages with this corner room just because of the challenges that they were facing. It's something that has to get better. Fortunately for TCU, I think it was you, Jeremy, that said it. The bye week's coming at a really nice time because you have a chance to hit the reset button a little bit ahead of these final 4 games, get some guys healthy, maybe improve the health, especially along that offensive line, get some guys really right, get Kavorian Barnes, get him fully healthy. Maybe you get Manjack and Ed Small back. Aside from health over this bye week, I'd love to hear from each of you. What's the one thing you really want to see TCU kind of dig into and bear down on as they head into this bye week?
I mean, I'll say it simply is at the end of the day, does this want to be a team that wins football games or does this want to be a team that competes for championships? And I think they have 4 games to decide what kind of team they want to be because they can talk about all the winning that they've done, but if you're winning week by week and focusing on week by week success without striving towards that big picture, you're going to fall short of your goals. And I think the intensity, we've heard Sonny talk about it a million times about being the team that's more excited to play. Time after time, we have seen this team, like we have in the years past, not be the team that was more excited to play. It happened against Colorado. It happened at K-State. It happened at West Virginia tonight. And so this is a kind of you got to ramp up the intensity. You got to play a little bit angry. You got to play with a little bit more fire in your belly. And you have to realize that you have a month to control as much of the rest of the season as you can control. Getting to 6 wins and getting bowl eligible, good. That's not the goal. Finding a way to put yourself in a position to be in the conversation for playing in Arlington is, and you're going to have a lot to prove over the next 4 games if you want to be a team that does that.
I said before the show started, Jamie, this game felt like Houston to me, except this time they won it. I can't take a lot of positives from this game other than the fact there's a few position groups that are starting to kind of shine, and I can look at it where there were some key players that were out. But just looking at the schedule, they've got to run the ball better to beat all the rest of these teams. They've got to play better in the secondary to beat all these teams. They can't go. I mean, it's crazy to say that they scored 23 points tonight against West Virginia without any turnovers. It was the weirdest game to me to watch because it just felt like that team was going through the motions. Melissa, you hit the nail on the head. They have got to come out with some energy. They have got to come out with some emotion. It seems like we've seen teams in the past, TCU teams, that just don't have that emotion. Steven, you were there tonight. You could see a better vantage point on the sidelines, how those guys were reacting. But it seems like other teams bring out more emotion. And we know they do because we've seen Sonny on the Carter boys constantly talk about coming out fast, playing with emotion, getting amped up for the game. So it's kind of an issue that they always have to discuss. And if they have to keep doing that the final 4 games of the season with everything in front of them, as crazy as it sounds, now I'm not going to say they're going to go out and go 4-0, but they potentially, if they just win games, I mean, you don't know what happens. So they have plenty to play for. It's not like they don't have anything to play for. So go out there with your butt on fire and go out there and try to win each game. But I don't have a lot of confidence right now. This game did not give me confidence. Last week I was saying don't magnify the final 3 minutes, and I don't know how I'm going to react to this game. Like how can you not look at the entirety of the 60 minutes that we just watched and not come away thinking, man, this team is in trouble? And like Melissa said, if it's just about winning games and getting to a bowl game like New Mexico, that's fine. But you have expectations. Mike Buddy has expectations as the new AD. He wants TCU to compete for a Big 12 championship every year. And whoever said it to begin the show, when I watch Texas Tech, when I watch Arizona State, when I watch BYU, Steven, I'm with you, man. I did not give BYU. I'm like, man, their schedule sucks. This and that. They're real. They're the real deal. They're a good team. They're a very good team. And I text Jamie, and Jamie, you don't have to read the text I sent to you earlier about going up to BYU, but it's a scary thought if they don't get some of these things fixed in the next 2 weeks. They got the bye, they got Iowa State at home, so hopefully you get the health back of some guys and you get some momentum. Play Iowa State at home and get some momentum and see how the road treats you.
Honestly, the thing I think of Sonny's press conference at the Baylor, where I would say it was a bit defiant, where he was kind of talking to the fan base or maybe some of his biggest critics, like, hey, we're whatever in our last 15, 14 games. And, we talked about it last week or the other week about how a lot of those wins were against teams below 500. So now you got this bye week. I think the whole entire program needs to look itself in the mirror and decide, like Melissa said, like Jeremy said, do we just want to win another game or two and go to the Alamo Bowl or, go back to my hometown? Or do you want to compete for a CFP spot? Because I think if they win out, even if they don't make it to Arlington, beating Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, even Iowa State, that's probably enough to get you into the playoffs, at the very least a top 15 ranking. So everything is on the table. And if you're Sonny, man, if you don't find a way, I think, to, end this stretch 3-1, 4-0, whatever the case may be, people are going to go back to this press conference and say, hey, you told us this team knows how to win. But do they really know how to win, or do they just know how to beat up on bad teams? Because Baylor looks like they're going to be 500-ish, 6-6. SMU's a good team. Got to give them that. Texas Tech, I think, won 8 games last year. But a lot of those wins, those recent wins, Sonny was kind of, stomping his fist about, were against 3-win, 4-win, 5-win teams. And that's not going to excite this fan base that's used to winning at a high level, both in and outside the Big 12. So, I think that could easily be, I don't want to say a tenure-defining moment, but it could be a season-defining moment where Sonny, he made his point. He shot his shot, but then if the team comes up short, now that press conference ends up looking a bit silly because you put your chest out there, but your team, he explained he wanted to have his teams back. The players didn't like some things they were reading after Kansas State. I'm not sure what exactly they were reading that wasn't, fair, but I think that might have been Sonny more than the players, but I digress. If they don't handle their business, man, the noise is going to get a lot louder. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a pivotal moment, man. I think just about everybody except Ken Wilson and Jamarcus Farland and maybe Malcolm Kelly, every other position coach needs to gather around and kind of view, like, what can we improve for this stretch run? Because this is a gauntlet. This is a gauntlet that will easily decide, I think it will set the tone for next year and the next couple of years, man, really about what the expectations for this program are. Sonny told us they want to compete for a Big 12 championship. I think despite the losses, you're here now, everything's in front of you. So you got to handle your business, man, or this fan base is going to want more. And I think rightfully so, that you didn't get hired here to win 7 wins or 8 wins. You got hired here to elevate this program and keep them where they were at. So, it's up on TCU and up on Sonny Dykes, man. This is a pivotal moment, man. They got to look in the mirror. I think one last point is teams take on the personality of the coaches. And I think we all love how laid back and chill Sonny is. But that might be the teams taking on that personality. Alabama, Nick Saban was intense. Georgia, Kirby Smart's intense. And these teams play like that. So they need more people to play with fire like Caleb Elarms or some of those other guys. So whether it's Sonny, I'm not sure what it is. They definitely need to play with more fire, with more physicality, or it could get real spooky in these last 4 games.
Dan Lanning is another good example of that. Ryan Day at Ohio State, another good example of that as well. Hey, I'm going to leave you guys with these 2 stats as we kind of wrap up the show here. TCU has more 10-win seasons than any other team in the state of Texas since the year 2000. They've only had one since Sonny Dykes has been the head coach. That was in 2022. Missed that by a game last year. Obviously, this is only year 4, but most 10-win seasons of any Texas program since the year 2000. TCU qualifies for a bowl game tonight. That means they are going to a bowl for back-to-back seasons for the first time since the 2017 and 2018 seasons.
Really?
Which is also really Google
Wow.
it. Google it.
Wow.
But yeah, first
That's
time
shocking.
since 2017 and 2018 that TCU is going to a bowl game in back-to-back seasons.
Contract
It does-
extension, baby.
So that is to say, we are seeing some progress, and there's a lot more progress still to be made, right? I don't think any TCU fan looks at this game tonight and is satisfied with how the result came about, but they can justify what Sonny said after the game. Hey, we won, right? The last 2 road games, we found ways to lose. Tonight, we found a way to win. So I think there is a lot of truth to what Sonny Dykes is saying in these post games. I think, Stephen, you nailed it when you talked about his defiance after the Baylor game. And okay, but you got to back it up at some point with wins against really good teams. You mentioned SMU. They lost to Wake Forest today. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
Yeah,
I did
He
not.
was watching Memphis UCF
Yeah,
and
you
seeing
go
his
back-
Tigers take care of business.
You go
Oh,
back
damn.
and you go back and you watch Wake Forest turn the ball over 5 times and then kick a 50-yard field goal to win it 13-12, my guy.
13
Holy
to 12,
cow.
Steven.
Maybe Rhett Lashley should go to Arkansas. Dang. Jeez.
It should be a good day for TCU fans, especially you two, because TCU wins, Baylor lost, and SMU lost in the fashion they lost. But I'm not sure any TCU fans really happy today.
No, I don't believe they are, but that's okay because there is light at the end of the
Wake
tunnel. I don't
Forest.
know. Yeah, I was gonna say, Steven, I never saw your hell no SMU tweet, so I'm assuming you didn't know the result or you would have fired that thing off. But
Absolutely not, man.
brutal. Well, hey, congrats to Memphis. Congrats to the Horned Frogs. 2 good wins today. That's going to do it, though, I think. To the 621 of you still watching this show, thank you
Should
so
I
much.
rank TCU this week, guys, before we go?
Yeah, everybody get in the
Ooh.
comments. Rank TCU or no in the AP poll. Let us see it. Let us see it.
That's a great, that's
Everybody
a great
type
question.
right now.
I
Get in there.
I gotta see who's falling out
Yeah,
the poll
you're gonna
first.
you got to look like TCU's probably in that like 25 to 29 range this week, depending other results. But you got a couple teams that fell out. Texas is gonna rise from 22 to 14 for beating a bad Mississippi State team in overtime. We got to move them up the ladder. So
Here's the real question, Stephen. Are you going to rank LSU? Because right now they're down 30
Absolutely
to
not.
Texas A&M. Okay. Arizona State sitting at rank 24 right now. They're
They're out.
losing to Houston at home,
Yeah.
24-9. Let's see some other
without
ranks.
their quarterback, but
No,
they
he
still
came
don't get
back
to
in.
stay- Oh, he did
Sam
come
Levitt came back
Okay.
in. He's been playing. Washington beats ranked Illinois tonight, 42 to 25. Like there are some of those 20
Yeah,
to
there's
25 teams that are going to
There's room.
slide out. Maybe there's an
I
opportunity.
don't know if y'all heard me about LSU, but hell no.
No, we did.
Hell no.
We did, but it's
Do you want to say it
thanks.
one more time, or
Just get
Hell
it in there
no.
one more time. Yeah.
there's 2 more people have joined, so we want to make sure they hear.
Okay. Well, we see Brian Eniger says nope. Devil Frog says no. Let them stay hungry. Zoom Play says yes at 25. JD says hell no. I don't know if he's talking about LSU or TCU there, but
Some
All
of
right.
the purple teams.
What if Kansas State goes on a run and finishes 8-4 with only 2 losses in the Big 12, and that's the reason why TCU can't go to the championship game?
Jeremy,
you probably should
this
have
guy.
shouldn't have blown a 17-point lead in Tempe then.
Yeah.
Probably should have been able to run the football against Arizona State a little bit better.
That's
And with that, that's going to end the Frogs Insider postgame show. For Stephen Johnson, Jeremy Clark, and Melissa Triebwasser, I am Jamie Plunkett. Make sure you check out all of our work at our various outlets, hornfrogblitz.com, the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Hit that like and subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following all 4 of us on social media as well. Between the 4 of us, you're not going to miss a single detail about TCU football or really any TCU sport the rest of the way this academic and athletic season. So make sure you're locked in because we're locked in for you. And with that, we're going to end this thing here. Go Frogs.